Everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Wilberforce Society Conference 2021. My name is Jake Lowry and I'm the Executive Director of the Society. Obviously, this is a little different than how we would normally run our conference, but we really hope you're looking forward to the day and that you get a lot out of it. The title for this year's conference is Politics Reshaped, Navigating the Age of Populism. We decided on this topic because we came to the conclusion that there is no single greater issue in global politics than populism. From fake news and digital media to increasing polarization in politics to the global climate emergency cooperation, populism is at the core of all of these issues. I won't talk for very long, but before we get started, I just want to say a few thank yous to a few people. Firstly, to all of you for coming along. We really hope that you enjoy it, and we couldn't run this without all of you coming and giving your input. Thank you also to our speakers in advance for their contributions. Also to George and Luke, our conference directors, for working under immense pressure to put this together. They have worked incredibly hard since March, and I'm very grateful to them. And also to the Wilberforce Committee at large for all of their work over the past year. We do hope you check out some of our published work if you go to our website at wilberforcesociety.co.uk. And all of our publications are there, along with details of future events and conferences. Without further ado, I would like to introduce George Bangham, the chairman of our Board of Trustees, who is going to introduce the conference. George.
Hi everyone, and thank you, Jake. So my name is George. I am the chair of the Board of Trustees of the Society, and so I've been asked to welcome you to the conference today. You may know, you may not know, I'm not sure, that TWS is quite unusual among student societies in that it's a registered charity, so it's regulated as any other charity would be in the country. And so the Board of Trustees, which I've been a part of for a number of years now, is there to kind of make sure that everything is going well, provide some external advice and oversight, and make sure that the society is doing what its charitable objects say it ought to be. And so it's useful to remember those. They're the education of the public, and the society does that very well. So today's conference is tackling those aims from a whole range of angles. But before that, I thought it might be interesting just to briefly reflect on what a student think tank is actually there for, because TWS was the first one to be founded in the country just over 10 years ago, and also what you can do with it. Some of you will have been involved with it for many years. Some of you, this might be your first TWS event. So it can be useful, I hope, to have a kind of broad overview of that. And then thirdly, I'll just close by reflecting on how your involvement, whatever it might be in the society, might help you in the future, as it's helped me and others who I studied alongside. And just to say about me very briefly, so I'm the chair of trustees. I was executive director, as Jake is now, back in 2012. And since then, I have worked in public affairs in the charity sector, and then more recently in think tanks. So I spent a few years as an economist at the Resolution Foundation think tank in London, and recently I've moved over to HM Treasury, so working in government, again as an economist, analysing the impact of policies like the furlough scheme. So to start with, what is a student think tank here for? The sort of founding premise back when TWS was started was that universities like Cambridge are extremely good at getting you to reflect on big questions and very valuable training in methods of analysis. But quite often, in at least many courses, that training isn't particularly applied to real world kind of live policy issues or other things. And that's something that obviously happens in a big way as soon as you leave. But TWS was basically founded to offer something new and to kind of give people the chance while they're still a student and while they can still devote the time and take risks and explore new areas, to work on applying their analytical skills from academia to real world challenges and sort of learning by doing, essentially. And I think that founding idea has been continued to be carried out very, very successfully. People, I think, are able through TWS to leverage many of the opportunities which are opened simply by being in Cambridge, which are not to be underestimated. And to use that to learn about many aspects of public policy by actually doing it themselves. So there is a bit of a risk, of course, when you sort of set up that quite ambitious goal to start actually doing public policy in a professional way as a student, that maybe it will take itself too seriously. Maybe it'll be a bit pompous and it kind of loses some of the fun that some student societies have. But I really think that, at least from the point of view of outside, having worked in government and in think tanks and in the charity sector now, I don't think that's the problem. I think actually more enlightened policymakers, at least, will recognise that that young people and students have a very specific and important voice in a lot of the policy debates that TWS gets involved with. And it's not simply a question of writing about universities themselves or education policy or other things affecting young adults, although of course the student perspective will be highly valued in some areas like that, not least at the moment as we hopefully move into the kind of later phases of the pandemic and the recovery. Obviously there's been significant disruption, as you will know, to education. So young people's kind of structured policy voice in that debate is hugely valuable and something that TWS has already been involved with, but there's lots more potential if some of you want to take on that challenge. But of course, TWS's work is not confined only to areas where young people have a specific voice. We've also seen excellent papers in the last couple of years on topics as wide as political party financing in Mongolia. That was that went into great detail into that actually fascinating topic. And we also had we've had papers on intentional disinformation, a whole range of things. So basically, if you have an idea and you want to bring it to as a student and you want to explore that, then please do bring it to TWS, pitch it, and yeah, the society will repay almost any amount of investment of your time. Yeah. So in terms of what you can do, obviously attending events like today is a very good start. And TWS is also a good opportunity to think about different policy areas you're interested in. So I've ended up working in economic policy, domestic economic policy recently, but I actually, as a student, I had started off thinking that I would go on wanting to work in foreign policy questions. So I wrote some papers on the constitution drafting process in Tunisia back in 2011 and 2012. And also worked on the national security, looked at the National Security Council in the UK. But from that experience, I actually concluded that I would be more interested and find it more fulfilling long term to focus on domestic policy. So that's what I've done. But you too, you might, as a student, want to explore some areas like that, leverage the opportunities available to you, maybe start getting a bit of a publication record through the Wilberforce Society. But even if you decide it's not an area you want to work on longer term, it will be valuable experience. And it will help you to build networks in particular areas of policy, learn how to interact with policymakers. Before I joined the Wilberforce Society 10 years ago, I'd never spoken to an MP or a Lord or anyone before. So again, it offers you that opportunity. And of course, it's not all about policy writing either. Some of the most important parts of the whole process are to do with policy communications. So again, if that's something that you aspire to work on, join the Wilberforce Society, offer your services, and almost any amount of investment that you put in to doing that while you're here can help you to gain experience that will be very, very valuable in future. And also, of course, events and marketing and other things which are integral to successful public policy, particularly in think tanks. As you can see from today's excellent lineup for today's conference, that is something that, again, TWS offers the opportunity to get experience of. And then, so just finally, I'm conscious that we're about to move on to the first panel. I'll just say a few things reflecting on how TWS might help you in the future. So obviously, at Cambridge, it's easy to be kind of bombarded by some very well-funded city recruiters and others, and many of you will go on to work in those sorts of firms. But TWS does give you quite an unusual opportunity to explore working in other sectors and other areas as well. So it's definitely worth using the opportunity it offers to explore other things that you might not have thought about doing after you graduate, be it working in different parts of the public sector or indeed in think tanks, other things, or else if you're going to a profession like medicine or the law, TWS can give you the opportunity to write and think about some of the kind of policy environment that shapes that world that you're going to be going into. And whatever you go on to do, it definitely thinking and writing about public policy will no doubt help you. Some of the people who I studied with when I was involved in TWS have since gone into government. They've worked for MPs, they've gone into communications and public affairs, diplomacy, public affairs consulting, NGOs, someone who even managed to get quite high up within the Trump administration. I'm not saying you necessarily want to replicate that sort of thing, but you might. And very seriously, do really take the time to explore what involvement in a student think tank can do. For me, it's been really essential to at least the first few years of my career to giving me the opportunity to get into the think tank world and to work on what I have done so far. And I really hope that you will be able to do that too. So very finally, if you have any questions, please do contact me, or I hope all of today's speakers would welcome it if you had a specific question you wanted to ask them. Do get in touch. And I really hope that you enjoyed today's conference, and also that you make the most of, in your time at Cambridge, what the Wilberforce Society can offer you more widely. So thank you very much, and enjoy the day. And I'm going to hand over now to Hannah Corsini, who is moderating the first panel.